Good afternoon. This is Nidumolu. I'm a professor at the Indian School of Business, teaching organizational behavior and leadership. And I'm speaking to Pranay, one of my students in the leadership class, who's a senior executive at Marriot Hotels. And I'm very interested in finding out how he's responding personally and how Marriott is responding as a group to the crisis that we are facing, an unprecedented crisis that is calling upon us to do things that are completely unexpected. And so I'm trying to learn how Pranay is coping at an individual level and at a group level. Welcome, Pranay. Welcome to this program.
Thank you, Professor Ram, and thank you for inviting me for this chat. I feel excited to be part of this, and hopefully I'll be able to contribute some.
Thank you. Thank you, Pranay. So let me just quickly ask you, how are you doing personally and emotionally? How are you in terms of how you're coping with this, both physically and emotionally?
Yeah, so I think initial period is when it was very anxious time for everybody, because that's the time we were trying to, it was very uncertain as to what will be the impact of this widespread and whether it will travel to other parts of the world or not, because it was very China-centric, very related to at this point in time. I'm talking about mid-Jan to end of Feb. And right. I think it evolved in Feb and March is when we really got to know that this will impact. However, we were, because of the large network that we have within Marriott portfolio, we were able to keep ourselves aware of what was happening in China, how did it impact the business, how was it impacting people. Obviously, China has a very different infrastructure to support this crisis, and India is positioned very differently to support this crisis from healthcare perspective, from infrastructure, from population perspective. So we were, I think, in a way aware. There was a lot of anxiety at different levels, purely because what will be the impact on business, what will be the impact on people and community, and because we had, to an extent, I think, experienced SARS in 2003, but that was at a very, very low level.
How so? How did you experience it?
I was part of the Marriott team in Mumbai then, and obviously did not have a large impact because China's economy was only so much contributing to global economy versus today, China is a big contributor to global economy. And the manufacturing unit and the import-export business, and I think a lot relies on China, how China does today in terms of global economy. And we were prepared. We saw Japan shutting down hotels. We got news of Korea shutting down hotels purely because a lot of people were obviously, so that created a lot of anxiety, but it also created, I think that nervous energy kind of helped us prepare better in terms of what can go wrong. So our job primarily became anticipating challenges that this crisis might pose to us. And then we started questioning ourselves as to what will happen if travel advisories are put in place. What will happen? Europe and US obviously are a big contributor to business, especially in cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, and major cities in India. And we were anticipating what will happen if US tomorrow puts travel restrictions and we completely
So how bad is it? How bad is it? It seems that hotel industry would be the first one hit. How bad is it for you and for others in the industry?
I think we're the worst affected industry, purely because the moment travel ban was put, flights were obviously not operating, lockdowns in the cities were, and generally sentiment obviously goes down, people stop traveling. It's not only accommodation, but it's also the food and beverage business, I think restaurant business, which gets impacted. And
could you tell us roughly what percentage of sales are down? I mean, is any data?
Globally, we are down by 90% of our sales.
90. Oh my God.
90. And at some point, I think the lowest period in China or in US or even in India today, I think we are about 90% of where we could be.
God. Yeah.
And we're looking at a very grim next few months, possibly with minimal or no business for foreseeable future, purely because obviously heavy cancellations have been received over last few weeks and few months, and there's nobody traveling. I mean, everybody's working from home, and I think technology tools like Zoom and Cisco WebEx and Microsoft Teams is helping them connect.
But how do you keep the hotels open for that 10% who are there, or infrastructure that must be kept open? How do you do that?
Yeah, so a lot of study, a lot of analysis went into analyzing whether the hotel will still be able to sustain and survive. What if we shut down? Will we save more by shutting down a hotel or by keeping it operational at 10% occupancy? And obviously, there is a lot of involvement from the ownership side. It is their personal interest as well. Some want to shut down hotels. Some think it is a matter of 3 to 6 months. And if we are able to support payroll and labor and take care of our liquidity issues and cash flow issues, we should keep the hotel running. So our ownership, after evaluating our P&Ls, we did P&L forecast for next few months, assessing what could possibly be our loss. Most of the hotels are in loss today. I think there would be any hotel which would probably be forecasting a profit over next 2 months. I'm not going beyond 2 months. Probably April and May is where we can have a possible view. But beyond that, it's very, very it would be very vague to put any number to that number. So after obviously deliberate discussion on this piece, we decided we will continue to run our hotels. We still have some guest in-house. We have about 15 to 20% occupancy at 4 hotels that I handle. And I think once the lockdown is lifted, we hope it will be lifted in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We hope that there would be, even if restrictions are put to, I'm surrounded by IT and ITES and banking and financial institutions around me. We are in a very buoyant market otherwise, right? And when it bounces back, hopefully we'll be able to see some trickling down.
Have you had to do any staff cutbacks and so on in terms of letting people go? Is that, I'm sure that's...
I think we have decided that we will, and thanks to our ownership, thanks to our company, it's a very people-oriented, people-focused company, and this is the time that we can really show who we really are, right? In terms of being empathetic. I mean, if the situation worsens, obviously there are no other options but to kind of look at that option. There have been some cuts at different levels across the globe, just to make sure that we are able to take care of our future payroll and not lose any labor over the next few months. If the situation worsens, we should be able to support each and every individual who's working for our company. So that's our primary goal. We've been able to go back to our team, communicate to them that these extreme measures are purely to support next few months. And hopefully
you've not had any cutbacks and so on. I see. Okay.
Yeah, principally tiered model in payroll is what we have gone in.
I see. And so what's been the biggest challenge for you as you try to respond to this crisis? Aside from understanding demand and what's on the ground, what are the biggest challenges you faced?
Yeah, so I think different industries would have gone through different challenges, but just to put things into perspective, there are challenges that you face at business level. There are challenges that you face at people level because they're very emotionally sometimes drained.
Right.
Some of them are able to support their families. They travel to different parts of the country and not being able to travel back to the city where they work. I think it is also a fear and panic that the entire crisis causes in terms of what will happen. What does future has in store for us in terms of, do we have a job? Do we not have a job tomorrow? So those kind of questions which predominantly are more worrisome and something that we need to be taking care of as leaders. And then obviously right from, I was fortunate because we were looking at China data, as I said, sometime in, 3rd week of Jan, and my town hall meeting in around 26th or 27th of Jan is the first time that I remember mentioning it to my team, saying that, you need to take care of your personal hygiene because that's super critical. And we have some data from SARS, but hopefully this crisis can be controlled. And I remember that was our first town hall where we kind of raised this point and said, take care of your personal hygiene, make sure that you're able to save money because we don't know. Because that's the time we also started seeing some cancellations. And that was the first alarm that we raised at the hotel level, sometime in 3rd week of January. And as we were looking at business, we were able to look at the future forecast. And as I said, we are in a very buoyant market. So my hotel gets booked kind of 60 days in advance. And we're overbooked. We overbooked, and that overbooking demand goes to other hotels in the city. But in this time around, while we were overbooked, we were getting massive cancellations.
So that was your signal.
Yes, and those cancellations were not getting replaced by newer bookings.
And
that was a pure, I think, drop in demand. And then we started to
when did you start noticing this?
This was right at 26th, 27th of Jan is when we started. We monitor our cancellations on regular basis, but this time the trend was very different. It was not getting replaced with newer bookings, and hence that was an alarm. And we started to kind of forecast our revenues in a sliding way. And every week it was changing because the information was coming at a rapid pace. this obviously the virus was spreading at a very rapid pace, especially post 15th of Feb till about
Right.
now. I think it has hit a peak at this point. Probably it is at its peak, and probably it will over next 2 or 3 weeks, if it is controlled well by governments across the globe, it should kind of
so walk us through how do you respond in the hotel industry? What do you do once you start recognizing this, you realize you respond? What's the first thing you do? What's the second thing you do? How do you respond to something like this?
So there is a lot of information that comes at the senior level. We try and make sure that we are able to filter that down and make it into meaningful, communicating to our team. So first thing, obviously look at business forecast, because that decides a lot of, our decisions are based on that.
Right.
And how do we, at what level do we decide, do we hit a contingency today, or do we wait for another week and say, okay, these are the measures that people have to take? So there was a task force committee which was formed at the hotel level, which was kind of the senior exec, which was deciding, okay, this is the business level, it is going down, which was headed by me. And then every day, it was like analyzing situation as it was evolving every single day, and kind of making those decisions that, okay, what we decided yesterday might not be good enough for survival tomorrow. So that was the pure understanding the top line and bottom line. Then we went out to our team and obviously communicated in different forums, because not every day a town hall was possible. So we obviously decided to have smaller group discussions or smaller group meetings where we were able to share information with them and then take their concerns as to what are they really concerned about, and then share, okay, what is important to us. Important is obviously health and safety of our guests, health and safety of our people, and making sure that our hotel is prepared to kind of fight and make sure that we are hygienic. From hygiene and cleanliness perspective, we're taking every measure. Since from SARS experience, we thought it would be advisable or wise enough to make sure that we have enough pandemic supplies at the hotel. Because while WHO was taking its own sweet time, I think they were understandably enough, because they didn't have enough data to kind of go and
things like masks and so on. What kinds of supplies are critical? Masks and things like that?
Yes, masks, sanitizers at different levels, hand washing obviously is important. So those were measures which were taken before the government even announced that this is important. And obviously that is visible to our customers. So our buffets are obviously touched by a lot of customers. Right? It has you have a lot of touching. So we could make sure that we were reducing the number of buffets and going a la carte way, so that customers are more assured of the service that they get.
And this was happening in February. All this was happening in February.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And then from rooms perspective, Marriott follows anyways. We have great procedures in place in terms of hygiene, which kind of disinfect against a lot of viruses anyways. So that process was already in place. At some time, so communication played a very, very important role. I think briefings and communicating it back to the team, understanding their concerns, going back and addressing those concerns became kind of a daily affair. And that was done by primarily me. I did not leave it to the junior managers, because communication, especially in crisis time, becomes very, very critical. And it needs to be crystal clear, and you need to be able to sensitively manage this information.
Right. And what was the key of the communication? What were you communicating about? Is it to reduce fear?
So one was about obviously the overall spread, that how it is spreading. What is the business forecast looking like, that it might go down? What measures are we taking at this point in time, just to make sure that, so that there is a buy-in from their side. And obviously it opens up a debate of, do you have any recommendations of taking measures which will help those? It was also focused on their personal hygiene and safety and all that stuff. It was also about if they had families have any concerns of them going back to their hometown for traveling. So those kind of concerns which are business related, personal related, and then smaller groups were formed where WhatsApp chats became a daily affair, saying that people who are in different parts of the country, we were able to connect with them regularly every week, saying that, are you okay? Do you need any help? Because not everybody is able to monetarily support in this time. So that became an awareness camp was held at the hotel. Doctors became a regular affair at the hotel, that there was a doctor made available every day, just to make sure that people who would feel otherwise, say have cold, cough, sneezing, have any kind of body ache, were seeing the doctor. In any ways, they were seeing a doctor at the hotel. And at some point, we started thermal screening to do temperature checks for both guests and the associate. That was on communication side. I think a very honest and transparent medium was followed in terms of how bad was it and how bad it can become, so that we were
I
very,
see.
very transparent to get
I see.
their buy-in. That was, I think, very, very important.
And then with regard to the basic, the infrastructure itself, operational side of it, when did you start sort of changing those operations? Is anything on the
So,
operation?
so as the situation was evolving,
Yeah.
we were unlayering once. I think removing one layer by layer. So obviously, from contingency measures and from operational piece measures, from safety, personal hygiene measures, we were all out right from day one, except thermal screening, which was, I think, recently implemented 2 weeks back, when the government, I think, kind of
Required. Yeah.
encouraged people to do this. We started doing it, and we observed our corporates close by were also doing it. So we thought this is our responsibility to kind of make sure that we are also able to do that. I think from from revenue forecast, which was predominantly our focus, we moved to a cost forecast, basically,
Okay.
because there was only so much revenue trickling in. Our focus from business, because we were made aware that there is only so much business out there.
Right.
And we tried every channel. We tried to look at alternative source of businesses, but we had limited success in that area.
So what's the first thing that goes in terms of cost then? Where do you reduce costs when you?
We look at we obviously look at top 10 big ticket items, which have 80% impact on hotel business. One is payroll. Second is heat, light, power. Food cost is big. Then there are commissions, and there is consumables, which is a big part of our cost. So we started looking at how can we reduce each area, and we say, example, heat, light, and power. At some point, my hotel is about 336 rooms, and there are two different brands in this complex. One is Courtyard, one is Fairfield. So we decided we will shut down one part of the hotel.
And by the way, this is the Rajajinagar Hotel, right? The one.
This is on the Outer Ring Road.
Outer Ring Road. Okay.
Yeah,
I see.
Next to Eco Space in Bellandur area.
Okay. Bellandur. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So each item we went by, scrutinized everything, scrutinized every small cost which was there in that area. Any non-essential cost was the first which would kind of get eliminated. And then we looked at what more measures do we need to take? Do we need to compromise on some standards? Do we need to make our team understand that this is the need of the hour and we need to take these measures? So we went step by step to kind of reduce this. And fortunately, last month, when we were staring at making loss, we were still able to make some profit.
Really? Because you had cut costs after. I see. Okay.
Yeah. And then this, obviously, rationalizing of cost will help us sustain or survive for next few months and mitigate the costs that we will overall have over next 3 to possibly.
Okay. And so as you look back, clearly, this is changing so rapidly, so suddenly, that it's hard to be always correct, hard to always be ahead of it. So as you look back, what lessons have you learned? What are the things you might do differently as you look back at the last 2 months, starting with, let's say, January?
I think what this crisis would help us understand is overall, I mean, the hotel was doing well. And obviously, when you look at our cost structure at the hotel, when things go right, obviously we look at making sure that our customers get everything that they can ask for, because they were paying a high rate. And after looking at this, we were, I think, like any other company, we would have to kind of revisit our cost structure overall and make sure that we are able to deliver that experience at a much lesser cost structure. In case we are hit by something similar, we should be more resilient in terms of making sure that we are able to withstand this without looking at, cutting payroll, cutting other costs which are necessary.
Right. And is there a lesson you've learned on which cost typically is something worth looking at, that it was too much earlier on and can be, trimmed now? Is there any particular area of operations that you feel is worth really cutting down?
I think all areas in general have an opportunity, but if you ask me, top 10 is where again I will focus more energy on, because they contribute significantly to the hotel profit margins. So food cost is one such example that I would focus on and say, okay, how can we reduce wastage? Because anyways, wastage is not helping anybody, right? How can we just produce food enough to kind of make sure that we are able to meet the number of covers that we have on business? And how can we, like we forecast our business, Can we forecast the food cost on daily basis? So that's
Okay.
something, these are minor little learnings that we would have. On a larger scale, I think.
Those elaborate buffets may not make sense anymore, is that? Those very elaborate buffets? Is that something that,
You know,
yeah.
to be very honest, Professor Ram, if we have 100 items on a buffet, it is only 20 items which are consumed more frequently because those are the classical items.
Exactly.
And rest, everything goes on the table a la carte to the guest. The other 80 items are actually a waste because it is done purely to kind of give that visual appeal to that buffet, where the customer feels there is so much more to have this buffet. So yeah, we will have to look at those options and say, okay, how can we rationalize here? This is at a very, very small level. I think the big learnings, I was just writing down some of the big learnings that we probably had. One is cash flow situation, liquidity issues. We need to be aware of our cash flow at least 6 months in advance and be prepared to kind of manage that. I think not only from hotel general manager's point of view, but from the ownership point of view. A lot of them have been, I think they've been in deep shock because, hotel is real-time business. What you made last month is what your profit margins are. That again gets reinvested back in hotel FF&E, which is furniture, fixture, equipment, and then obviously you have to pay payroll and other stuff. So it's real time. It's not like IT where you can operate even from home and then still you can make profit or revenue on profit and revenue. So this is real time business. Hence, we probably need to look at our overall model after this. I'm sure a lot of companies would revisit this.
That's what I'm interested. Where do you think the model has to change? One, you said be much more aware of cash flows. How many days in advance? You said?
I think we need to have a view of 60 days.
60 days, okay.
I think as a hotel also, because when you are riding the momentum, you look at, you are in great shape and you're making great money and that profit margin is flowing to the owners. We can also look at, receivables and payables to be very big. That forms a big chunk of any organization, and how we can possibly work on terms and condition where we are able to collect money in time and reduce that receivable time, and then probably look at extending payables so that we are in better cash flow situation than we were in the past. That is one piece that I would.
What are some of the other big lessons?
I think from larger point of view, there are a few that I had kind of. 1 minute. Let me just give me a second. I think lot of hotels will kind of reimagine the next normal because not hotels, a lot of organizations would. A lot of small businesses which were vulnerable and would not be able to survive this, obviously they will be out of business. I think payroll is another I think area where do we need to have so many workforce available in the hotel, and then how can we make sure that we are able to trim that down and not cutting, but be cognizant of the fact that okay, for a 100-room hotel, for a 300-room hotel, do we need a ratio of 1:1, or can we manage with the ratio of 0.7? And how can we bring more efficiency and improve productivity of those employees working at the hotel? Because that will eventually, payroll is a big ticket item in hotels. It's 20 to 25% based on which market you're operating and what is your top line. So that is again another one. Working with different
technology, much more intensive use of technology, you think, to replace?
Absolutely. By obviously, I think there would be a lot of emphasis. Hotels and hospitality have been slow in adapting to the advancement which has happened in technology, purely because this is still a very people-oriented industry, and it is driven on soft skills than on kind of technical piece. Probably, I think organizations will be compelled to look at how technology can now help bring the overall cost down. And I think organizations are already looking at it, but they will just fast track this entire thing and say, okay, how can we bring the technology in to help obviously reduce the overall cost of the hotel. Another piece is working with partners, working with, I think, not only customers, but partners in terms of our vendors. And especially when it comes to big ticket items like heat, light, power. And say, okay, how can we not only reduce our cost, but also help renewable energy and buy power from those channels. And it will not only help obviously renewable energy like wind and solar and things like that, but it will also help the hotel probably get a rebate from the government in terms of overall power.
And the intention there is to reduce costs of energy, or why renewable energy? I see, reduce costs.
reduce
I see.
costs.
I see.
And government is helping. I mean, we are already have taken that route 3 years
I see.
back. But most of the small hotels, big hotels can actually, now it should be a mandate to kind of purchase power
I
from
see. I
those
see.
guys.
How about this concern? Many people have said that after this, many people may stop traveling itself or reduce travel. Is that something that concerns you, that people get used to video conferences, get used to being where they are, and may not actually do physical travel much? Is that a big
So
concern?
I think the consumer confidence will be low for about, I mean, if it dies down in next 40 days,
Yeah.
say, I'm just hypothetically putting a picture out there. If it kind of is contained by mid-May, hopefully.
Okay.
Consumer confidence will it will take time. So people will
Yeah.
start to go to restaurants first, and
Yeah.
then experience the restaurant, and then probably feel comfortable with that. And probably it will take about 4 to 6 months, especially we have heavy reliance on Europe and US's market.
So to go at the
Those,
bottom. Yeah.
those nationalities are generally more concerned about areas pertaining to hygiene and cleanliness and things like that. And we will have to reassure them in terms of our standards of what we have taken. So only when the consumer confidence is high, which I think would take 4 to 6 months, international traveler,
Yeah.
they will be able to kind of get back to normalcy. But
Okay.
I think some of the studies that McKinsey has done and KPMG has done highlights the fact that best case scenario looks at coming back to a 50 to 60% occupancy by sometime in quarter three. But
Okay.
that's the best case scenario. Most
Okay.
likely scenario is 2020 is done.
Right.
And in Q1 2021, quarter one
Do you
2021 is
feel
when
there will be a fundamental change, long-term fundamental change in the nature of travel itself, or it'll just come back to normal in 2021?
No, I'm sure a lot of people will evaluate, a lot of companies will evaluate traveling airline. I think it will be driven by consumer behavior. If
Yeah.
this, obviously they will ask for things that from hygiene, cleanliness perspective, what the measures
Yeah.
have been taken.
Right.
I possibly thermal screening might become a daily affair. Like,
Right.
baggage check was never the affair before 9/11,
Right.
but
Right.
it did become a part of our life today.
Yeah.
So thermal screening and things like that, which are more focused on health and safety, might supersede other. And
May have to
hotel
be there.
companies which are able to take dramatic measures supporting those causes will probably be the organizations which will benefit.
Okay.
And
Now the question, Pranay, in
human
terms of,
interaction.
go ahead. So, we've been discussing business model changes in a way, right? But I'm also interested in people. What have you learned in terms of any insights on people and how people respond to crises in the last 3 months? What have you, any learnings or observations or insights on people themselves?
Yeah, so a lot of people crumble under pressure because, one, the pace at which information has come to them, that one is not only absorbing that, but be able to implement what it and analyze the situation. That puts a lot of pressure, I guess, on the brain, right?
Right.
And then as you're evaluating, you're making decision and the information changes. And
Right.
then done. So I think probably that's one of the reasons that it puts a lot of pressure on people.
It's a brutal world.
In pressure, in stress situation, their behavior kind of changes. How they respond to a situation can change. To a very similar circumstance, their response can change. And I've seen that people become more aggravated and irritated, and then they have to be counseled, and then they have to be told that you need to just raise yourself above this. And the only thing that you can choose to do, because everything else is out beyond your control, the only thing you have in your control is the freedom to do what you really like to do and choose your response in this situation. And what you are going through is not the only one who's going through this. There are others also. So senior execs have kind of given up in situations. You just need to, I think, understand emotionally from where they are at, and then help them. I've had instances with my own colleagues, people who are reporting to me, kind of losing their patience. And
Getting overwhelmed.
Yes, I had to be patient with them in order to make them understand.
And what have you learned, going back to Beingful leadership and that sense of being? Any lessons from that?
I think a great deal of empathy and compassion is required in dealing, especially with, businesses momentarily, it's temporary today. What is permanent is relationship. And if relationship kind of outlasts your business and other aspect of the game, I think you will better have, I think you will have better trust and commitment from people. One. Second, as a leader, you will grow in stature
Yeah.
because people will come back to you. They know, okay, even in the toughest of situation, you are able to maintain your calm and demeanor, which is important. From Beingful perspective, you are able to think from others' perspective, which is so critical because
Yeah.
everybody is bringing in such diverse, different information to you, and every piece of information can be critical to what decisions you're making. It is
Yeah.
important that you're able to gain others' perspective and
Yeah.
not just disregard anybody who's not been able to contribute in past.
Yeah.
So I think from that perspective, Beingful leadership plays a very, very critical role. Till
Yeah.
the time we're dealing with humans and we have human interaction, this is
Yeah.
going to be, I think, very, very critical in how we operate tomorrow.
And
So
hopefully it helps you anchor in something more stable, like the higher bird, where you can
absolutely,
be more calm.
absolutely.
And that's something
Yeah.
you felt?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, first few weeks, I think first 10 days were very anxious. There was a lot of anxiety
Yeah.
from senior level to junior level, I think. Purely because everybody was trying to not only come to terms with what this situation has to offer, but also realize what is my role, what do I do, how will it impact me, and things like that. Once they were able to kind of go into a comfortable situation, okay, this is going to be the impact. It is not good, it is bad, and it will be the impact. They came to terms with it. That was, I think, the self-awareness side of it, that they were
Um,
now self-aware of the impact. They were able to
yeah.
then sit down and then think about it calmly and say, okay, this is possibly the next step. And only once you're
I
able to,
see.
then you go back to your, I think, core, as you said, right?
Yeah.
You're anchoring yourself into something which comes naturally to you, and you're saying,
Yeah.
okay, this is important to me. What
Yeah.
are we really trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
And then you start answering those questions. Okay, are we
Yeah.
trying to do this? Is it really important? This is not important. Let's get rid of this. So I think, yeah, anchoring, finding a purpose in that, even in this very volatile, uncertain time, even
Yeah.
having slightest of clarity in terms of which direction you need to take provides clarity to the entire organization. So yeah, I think
And
that
so in a way, this is the key job of leadership at a time like this, I guess, right? What do you
absolutely.
sense? What do you feel are the key? What have you learned about leadership itself? What should leaders do from a Beingful perspective in a time like this?
So overall, I think I will focus on personal leadership because
Sure.
from business strategies and perspective, it can vary from organization
Sure.
to organization. It will vary. So there are 5 C's that I after talking to you and probably putting this together, I thought, and then this is in no order, so it can possibly be different if you try and put this in order. First thing is you have to have a lot of courage and conviction. I think in the face of adversity, you should be able to make decisions, right decisions with clear mind and pure heart. And because your team should be able to see that despite of this volatile, uncertain situation,
Yeah.
uh, we have a strong leader at the top.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
believe in him or her, and he'll
Yeah.
be able to make the right decision for us. So I think that is super critical. So that is prime. Second
Yeah.
is clarity, or if you want to call it vision, because you will only
Yeah.
have a short-term vision at this time. You can't
Yeah.
have a long-term vision.
Yeah.
And then I think from clarity, I mean that you have to point the way ahead in a direction which is the most viable. So you have to weigh those options in your mind,
Yeah.
talk to stakeholders and figure out what is important for the company, what would be important, what does it really mean for our business people, community, and things like that, and then be able to make the right decision in
Right.
order to provide that clarity and communicate. So I think third would be
Address that
communicate.
anxiety. Yeah, this will address that anxiety and give
Yeah.
that grounding. Okay. And
And
then?
have clarity on near term, which is short term, and probably build on the long term as the situation evolves and as your plan kind of takes some shape. Third is communication. I think
Yeah.
it is critical at times like this. If you are seen communicating more articulately to your team, clearly and secondly to your team, it makes so much of difference. And lead from example. I mean, I'll probably put this in one bracket: communicate and lead with example. Because if people see you doing things which you might not have done in past, like I'll give you a
Yeah.
very simple example. We did a cleaning crew drive in our hotel. 3 of us, top leaders, this last Friday, just clean the cafeteria for our team. And then usually that is done by a public area attendants or housekeeping attendants. But purely because
Okay.
they've been sent on holidays, we said, let's take the responsibility, clean this. And if
Okay.
situation comes tomorrow, you will ask people to go
Yeah.
multi-skill. and take tasks that they've not been able to. So you're preparing them kind of mentally. So communication not only through, I think, verbal communication, but also through leading by example. Leading by example. I think next would be very important that we are able to kind of take care of people with compassion and empathy, as I said in past. So compassion purely for people who are in need. You know, obviously a lot of people are today stranded because of lockdown and other stuff, and there is a principal responsibility that we should be able to contribute even in the smallest manner, because and everything, I think at heart everybody, if in a capable position, would want to contribute positively to a society. As you pointed out in your program also, it just gives you immense joy and happiness, because you feel that you are at a position where you can help. So I think compassion is super important for any organization. Make your organization, I think, humanize your company more than what it is today. And empathy for your people. Just be able to feel what they're feeling, and then make decisions, purely take their buy-in, keep that perspective in mind, and be able to do that. So that is super critical. And I think last piece would be character.
Very interesting. And what do you mean by that?
So obviously different people have different values, but strong values are able to build strong organizations. In times like this, what is innate to you comes out naturally out. And at times, even if you want to keep your calm in natural, I mean, when the business is okay, people can actually get worked up and start shouting at people, right? And so I think character would include honesty, integrity, the super critical. I think if you know the challenges that your organization has, you will be able to make a decision with clear mind. And if you know the people who are behind that organization, who are making a difference, you will be able to make a decision with pure heart. So clear mind, pure heart, probably that philosophy might suit perfectly well here. And I think transparency. So character would include a lot of other stuff like honesty, transparency, and strong belief. Because
the 5 C's are: one is courage. Have the courage. Second, the clarity. The third is the communication, and not just communication by words, but by example. The fourth is compassion. The fifth is character. Very interesting. These are all, in some ways, Beingful leadership, where being at some level true to a core part of you. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. Pranay, this has been fascinating. It's fascinating. Learning about the industry, learning about how to lead an industry like this, learning about the challenges, the lessons learned. Very interesting. Thank you very much for this, and
thank you.
Look forward to talking. Thank you, Pranay.